There is a story about a holy man. While he was still alive, he was given the special privilege of seeing heaven. He was at the entrance of heaven, waiting for Saint Peter. And while he was waiting, he just walked around. And he was surprised to see hundreds of thousands of human ears hanging all over the place. He then went and asked an angel who was standing there, "What does this signify? Why are all these ears hanging over here?" And this is what the angel told him. Those ears belong to people who were good listeners of the gospel, but not doers of the gospel. They loved to listen to the word of God, but did not practice what they preached. So it's only that their ears are over here. It's just an imaginative story, but the message is very clear. Jesus says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven." What was the problem with the Pharisees? Why was Jesus against them? The Pharisees were good listeners and preachers of the word of God. In fact, they were recognized as spiritual leaders. But they were not doers. And that was the main issue. The second reading, the Apostle James exhorts us. He says, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deluding yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his own face in a mirror. He sees himself, then goes off and promptly forgets what he looked like. But the one who peers into the perfect law of freedom and perseveres, and is not a hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, such a one shall be blessed in what he does." This is what we have in the letter of St. James chapter 1 verses 22 to 25. For a society or any organized group of human beings to live, there must be some stipulated way of doing things. To bring order, uniformity, harmony and peace, we need rules, we need laws. When this is absent or not functioning, there could be chaos and confusion. There could be anarchy, peace and progress would be missing. We need laws. But then Jesus points to a pitfall that we can fall into. Using God's commandments, using the traditions, using the laws for selfish reasons, and thus distorting God's will. The reaction of Jesus is very severe because something great is at stake. It is the relationship between human beings and God. The authenticity of religious life is at stake. A hypocrite is a liar. A hypocrite is not authentic. Today, Jesus calls us to recognize what is the true core of the experience of our faith. And that is very clear. Jesus is clear. The core of our faith is love of God and love of neighbor. Today's gospel message is also reinforced by the Apostle James, who again tells us what true religion is. He gives us a definition of true religion. St. James says pure religion is to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. To visit orphans and widows means to practice charity towards our neighbor, beginning with the weakest, with the neediest, frailest, most marginalized people. They are the people whom God takes care in a special way, and He asks us also to do the same. And when St. James says to keep oneself unstained from the world, he does not mean to isolate oneself from the world, to close oneself from the reality. No, here too there must be not an exterior attitude but interior attitude. It means being vigilant. It means stay awake, be alert, so that our way of thinking and acting may not be polluted by the worldly mentality or that of vanity, of greed, of arrogance, of sin. Actually, a man or woman who lives in vanity, in greed or in arrogance, and at the same time believes and shows him or herself to be a religious person and worse still condemns others is a hypocrite. We live in the world of electronics. An example for electronics about inputs and outputs would be interesting to listen to. Inputs refer to signals, either sound, current or wave coming from outside, and it goes into an electronic device. On the other hand, outputs are signals, current, sound waves coming out from the device. A device, an electronic device like a good speaker, cannot be rated on what goes into it, the input. Rather, concern is much on what comes out of it. Only that makes us say the sound is clear, it's an excellent speaker, it is loud, or about a light, it's an excellent bulb, light is bright, and so on. How well was that gadget able to synthesize the input signal it has received and able to produce the output? Today Jesus says clearly that it is not what goes into a man, the input, that defiles him or her, rather what comes out of him or her. Temptations will come, problems will come, but how am I going to respond to all of these? If we look at it very well, we have so many things that act upon us as inputs in our day-to-day lives. What nature gives us is an input. What our environment does to us is also an input. And what our fellow human beings do to us, our relationship, is also an input to us. We have no power to control what we receive. But how we choose to react to them is basically ours to decide. A child born without fingers, for instance, receives that as an input from nature. What he or she makes out of it defines him or her. He or she may try to struggle with it, to adapt to the strange condition and become exceptionally productive. Again, a husband and wife who are constantly in conflict. When the wife starts a conflict, the husband may decide to keep silent, walk away, and let the house be peaceful instead of reacting and creating a commotion and spoiling everyone's day. That becomes the output which defines his family. Many people let what goes into them, their inputs, to define them. What goes into a person is the litmus test of what is inside that person. A popular saying goes, when you shake a bottle, it spills out what the content is. Today let our prayer be, Lord, purify my heart, my actions, and free me from hypocrisy. God bless.
My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me.